that fire has a name, and it is servant leadership, which is you will know a lot of people. Maybe you guys are this too. I have a feeling because you're doing a podcast, it is that. But there's people who are deeply involved in their communities, in their churches, in sports groups, in charities, in industry associations, and things like that. And naturally, you find some people in your life that are they're on city council, they're on the school board, they're volunteering all the time. These are servant leaders. Biologically, they are programmed to look outside themselves and try to bring some positivity to those around them. And they're going to find an outlet sooner or later. And in the olden days, before any social media, it literally is just that. Help your neighbor, help out the school, volunteer to be a coach for a baseball team or a volleyball team. But now when we have social media, I weaponized this servant leadership. I didn't know this was me. This was something that people told me I had traits of, but I will always reach outside myself. Social media just became the thing that knocked the end of the spigot off, and now it's just like a fire hose shooting out there. And it really let me fully express this need to go outside of myself and affect the lives of
others. Welcome back to The Pursuit of Purpose. My name is Chris Kiefer, and I am here with Nick Slavik today, as well as a co-host, Nathan Tenopole. So we are going to be talking about painting-related things and purposeful attitudes and actions and work and all that stuff. So first of all, Nick, thanks so much for taking the time to join us today.
No, I appreciate it, guys. I do deeply appreciate the opportunity. So thank you for this.
Yeah. So you are, I feel like, I'm going to go out on a limb, but Nathan, you can tell me if you agree. You have to be the most recognized name in the painting world, if there is such a person. Can you even think of someone that would be? And I know this might be awkward because we're like telling you how famous you are, but the point is like you. And I'll get into why I believe that. But is there anyone else that you know that is like very prominent in the painting world?
Yeah, so me being from Minnesota, I'm going to be limited in my ability to respond to that. We are passive aggressive, we are introverted, and we have little to no self-esteem. We suffer from that. So number one, I'm almost biologically prevented from giving you a response to that. I will tell you this, data plus feelings. The feelings is there are many more people with many more followers than me, but spirit-wise, connection-wise, I think I every connection I have is much more deeply meaningful than a follower on TikTok for most other people. So there are people with many more views, many more followers, many more reach, but it's quality versus quantity for me, which is yes, I do touch a lot of people, but the people I do touch, it's pretty meaningful, and that's what I would consider. I'm blushing even saying that because it almost feels like bragging about myself, but I do believe it might be accurate.
Yeah, because the reason I was going to say as far as why is you have done Ask a Painter Live for how many consecutive weeks? 300 or something like that?
Let's see, what show? Oh, we're on show 399. So that's 399 consecutive weeks without missing a week.
Yeah. So I feel like to me, that's it. That's like, talk about consistency, how many, I don't even have to do the math. 400 divided
It's
by
almost
50.
8 years, right?
8 years.
It's getting there.
That's like the beginning of when internet was invented. So you were like early on this.
Honestly, I think I was just recounting this to somebody in my shop today. I'm actually coming from the Slavik shop today. I was recounting the story that I think the first week that Facebook ever offered live was the first live I ever did.
That's awesome. Did you do anything else besides like before Facebook? Did you do YouTube or any other like putting yourself out there on the internet?
No. So one thing that I have done, there's many things, right, that we're just lucky enough to do and it works and it's great and it's consistent. A lot of the things that is not genuine to us, we're not consistent with. So obviously Ask a Painter is genuine to me because it takes no problem for me to be consistent. 12 years ago, 13 years ago, I started on Facebook. Then when Instagram came off, I did Instagram, and then I just followed all the social media things. And initially, I really do like sharing because of the connections it would make. And it really opened up my world because I'm endlessly fascinated about the coding science, the tools, the materials, And as I started to grow my business, about the human side of this and management and leadership and intentionality and grit and perseverance. So it's just been like it's been this magic mirror, social media, in which I can look into, and it connects me with humans I would never know exist. YouTube being some of them. So
Hmm. Yeah. I
I have a
was going to
question.
ask really quick, Gary
Yeah.
Vaynerchuk. Do you know Gary Vaynerchuk? Are you aware of him?
is this a test?
Yeah, I'm just curious because I was like, there has to
Yeah,
have been,
I'm
maybe you
familiar.
read one of his books or something because,
No,
yeah.
and yeah, so I actually I don't often take a lot of like bipolar stances on stuff. There are a bunch of like influencers and people who write and read business books that I'm aligned with and not. I do appreciate what he does. His methods of communicating are a little off-putting to me, but I do believe a lot of the things he actually says are true. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because
he
I was
does
going to
not have a
say, was that
Midwestern
a,
style of communication.
no, he doesn't.
Yeah, he says the F word too much.
This is a lot. It's one of his favorite words, I think.
And I get it, like, so I am apt to use some spicy language, but Minnesotans bristle when that's an affect people place upon themselves. I feel like he's doing that he wouldn't normally do that in his life. Maybe that's judging, maybe that's being a little scarcity mindset of me, but it is one of those things where in Ask a Painter, you're not going to hear a lot of that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah,
was
it's an
more curious if
emotional.
that was a reason to start.
No, and so interestingly enough, back when I started on social media, there were none of these humans. Mr. Beast wasn't
Hmm.
here. Gary Vaynerchuk wasn't posting. Joe Rogan didn't have a world famous podcast. There literally wasn't this, right? So what I got is I love immediate feedback. I love qualitative data. And when I would post a picture of like historic restoration I was on, and I would show this beautiful piece of trim that was put there 140 years ago, and you could see the marks from the craftsperson's saw, and I wrote something meaningful about how that means something to me, it would get tons of likes. When I would post something that is a little shallow, hey, I got a new truck, I wouldn't get as much. So for me, that's a certain thing of like that really helped me understand like, oh, wait a second, there's other people that think this is meaningful. Their names and their qualitative data are right down below. I should connect with them. So it
Love
was,
that.
it's a roundabout saying it's a biological thing. I was either going to do this with humans near me. Social media just became an avenue where I could show a lot of people what I love. I love showing people what I love. It just coincided with the advent of social media.
Okay. So I hear you saying like part of the big reason why you do this is just the human connection. Like that's just something that's really important to you. And obviously social media is a great way to do that. And you found being genuine, being authentic has created deeper connections than, look at my new truck or whatever else it may be. So my follow-up question to that is like, I hear you saying that's part of why you've done this show for 399 straight weeks. Why else do you do it? Like you made the comment like, oh, I could do this for another 400 weeks and like it wouldn't even be a thing. Like I love it. And to me, that's like there is a deep fire inside of you that drives that motivation and makes it feel like not work, right? Like,
No.
so
And
what is that?
that
What is
fire
that
has a
fire? Why do you do what you do?
Yeah, that fire has a name, and it is servant leadership, which is you will know a lot of people. Maybe you guys are this too. I have a feeling because you're doing a podcast, it is that. But there's people who are deeply involved in their communities, in their churches, in sports groups, in charities, in industry associations, and things like that. And naturally, you find some people in your life that are they're on city council, they're on the school board, they're volunteering all the time. These are servant leaders. Biologically, they are programmed to look outside themselves and try to bring some positivity to those around them. And they're going to find an outlet sooner or later. And in the olden days, before any social media, it literally is just that. Help your neighbor, help out the school, volunteer to be a coach for a baseball team or a volleyball team. But now when we have social media, I weaponized this servant leadership. I didn't know this was me. This was something that people told me I had traits of, but I will always reach outside myself. Social media just became the thing that knocked the end of the spigot off, and now it's just like a fire hose shooting out there. And it really let me fully express this need to go outside of myself and affect the lives of others.
I think servant leadership is such a big deal, and I think it can be contagious. I think people see you doing what you're doing, and they're like, "He's not trying to sell me anything. Like, what?
What's the
Where's the
hook?
offer? Where's
Yeah.
the like? What's he trying to do here?"
No,
And you
like
don't like you. I mean,
it's
and
famously,
that's
I literally have nothing to sell. Like
yeah,
literally I have
not even a
nothing to sell.
sponsor. You should like pitch
I'm not a
somebody, like
coach.
make
No,
something off of this.
no, and
I wouldn't
so
blame you.
obviously it would be not trustworthy of me to say that there's not Ask a Painter is not a business, but I take like a broadcast radio effect where the Ask a Painter show and its four verticals is sort of my way of reaching out there, making genuine connections. It turns out there's some economic value to that, to some very large underwriters who send me around the country to teach what I say on Ask a Painter to other people. And for those people, it's free, but we just have one or two people paying for it. So this is not a new model, right? It's TV, it's broadcast radio, it's large underwriters pay for it so that the masses can consume it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to ask, what is I don't know how much I'm like a data marketing guy, so I'm just curious about
Uh,
this. And to the extent that you can, or that you're open to talking
yep.
about it, like obviously, so I went on well, I should tell you, my background is I'm an engineer by education. I ran a marketing company for 6 years. Then I had kids and was like, I'm not making any money in this small business marketing company. So I took a job as a marketing director for a growing painting business. And I was at that job for 3 years. And then in that process, I realized, man, this engineering stuff that I just can't in my bones. I'm just obsessed with automation and data analytics and all that stuff. I had automated all these processes, and other painting companies were like, hey, can you do for us what you did for them? And I was like, oh, yeah, sure. So then I do another one and another one. And now all of a sudden, a year and a half later, I'm helping people automate their businesses, their painting business specifically. So I didn't know of Nick Slavik until, I don't know, 5 months ago ish, maybe
Yeah.
6 months ago. Cause I was the marketer. And I would say from my view, you're focusing a lot on just like mastering the basics, professionalism, bidding, job
Yeah.
costing, all those things. And I was like in digital media land.
Yep.
But anyways, since I've got into this space of like trying to put out content, I know that obviously the strategy of like, hey, we have this show, and if you want the templates, you can drop your email and I'll send it to you. What's the like the list value, or how are you leveraging the list to? And I should also clarify that to me, I think there is absolutely nothing wrong. Someone might be like, oh, what are you going to do with my information? It's like, well, I'm either going to add you to my newsletter or to a newsletter of something that I think is going to serve you if you're a painter, and you can unsubscribe if you don't like it. Is there anything
Yep.
more to it than that, than like genuinely connecting people to further resources that they might find valuable?
Yeah, so I can with a straight face and honestly and genuinely say that I legitimately want to help other people the way that other people had helped me. I had been in this industry for 25 years before I got serious about running a business. And in that first 25 years, it was grit, it was pain, it was high, low feelings, all this other stuff. And I loved the craft so much I didn't leave. Only in the last 6 years did I go from one person to 40. And that's solely because other people did for me what I am now doing for other people. So I would feel very disingenuous if I didn't then turn around and do that for others. Now, you could make an argument that Ask a Painter and its four verticals is a not
What are the
fully
four
realized
verticals?
business. So we have the live show, which is the flagship. We have in-person events. We have public speaking, and we have content creation. So
Hmm.
what people know of me of like the live show, that is the most visible thing that if you're a painter and you search any painting topic, you're likely going to trip over me, right? It's an accessible thing. It's live. It's fairly informal. I give resources away. It's fine. The biggest bottom of the iceberg, the tip of the iceberg is the Ask a Painter show. The bottom of the iceberg is a lot of the content creation, which, if I'm being honest, I think I have 24 separate contracts every year, and almost nobody ever sees where this stuff lands, right? It's for all of the big industry patrons and things like that. And I'm very respectful. There's a whole bunch of NDAs, and I execute contracts like a good soldier whenever I'm able to. Whether people see it or not is a whole other thing. The What I don't do right now, and this is the part where you could make the argument, well, maybe this isn't a fully realized business, but I would make an argument. I'm not taking people's information and using it to market anything specific in a direct way. This is a very indirect thing where of my 4 verticals, there's one that's wholly a loss leader that feeds all the other ones. The other ones could not exist without the other one. The best example I can give you is I host 2 in-person retreats every year in a place that's very special to me. It's invite only. You got to go through an application process. You got to be vetted by me. There's typically 15 to 18 people. We go to a luxury lodge. There's a private chef, and we go deep on you come there with an ask, and this is a think tank of other people. And I have people prepare for their ask for 6 months. They show up, and usually what people get out of the feedback of this group and the interaction, they make life-changing decisions on it. Now, that is not free, right? That is a thing where I use Ask a Painter to meet my core people. We vet them through industry events. If I like you at industry events and I know that you could be a beneficial think tanker in this think tank, you might get an invitation to a retreat, and then it's a feeder system for all those things. And it's very selfish because it's things I want to do with my friends.
That's awesome. I love that.
I think you're a great example of somebody who's found something you love, and you found something you're really good at, and you've poured yourself into it in a way that gives back. And in your giving, now you're finding yourself with these opportunities to receive, right? And I think that's like really could be a blueprint for a lot of people, right? Like, what do you want to do with your life? Do you want to do stuff that you love and you care about and brings you fulfillment? Like Nick Slavik is an example of one way to do that. And if you can do that as a painter, okay, you can do it with anything, right? Like, it doesn't matter what you do. You can find your passion, and you can find the thing that is excellent to you and like you're really good at, that doesn't take that much energy, and like pour your life into that, and like good things will come to yourself, but and those around you.
I was very lucky that I actually found my passion. And yeah, I don't read many business books. I know you're probably going to ask me for some recommendations. I don't read many business books, but one of the ones I did read was Grit. And Grit is a book by a social psychologist that lays out a data-based way of like who are the outliers and how do they get there. And one of the things is you do not get struck by lightning by your passion. You don't just walk around one day and trip over your passion. You need to rigorously explore and try and fail to find your passion. Turns out I was born into my passion in my family business. And so I was very lucky that for a long time, I was just a painter, and I always thought the grass was greener elsewhere until I realized that almost everybody I know hates their job in some way. You know, there's very few people that are truly in their prime, in their passion, get energy from work instead of just being neutral or negative. And once I realized that that was me, no looking back. And this is literally that, which is I have no problem being a rugged capitalist, right? If there was an opportunity to make some money on flipping a house, I would do that. I do not get deep love and satisfaction and energy from that. What I want to do is find a historic home, restore it, find a way to have a foundation for needy children to be there so that for generations into the future, this beautiful historic home fosters, it's a force multiplier to give greater good for the longest period of time. Now it's a long play, right? And Ask a Painter is a long play. But if I want to devote myself and my life to something meaningful, I'm gonna form a decade-long foundation so that I can reap the rewards from my connections from Ask a Painter and the beautiful humans I meet with it for the rest of my life. I don't want to scale up a show, get its standard operating procedure, and then sell my podcast. Like that is not me. I get energy from this, and I will continue it as long as it's relevant.
So I've got I love everything you're saying. And obviously my show being the pursuit of purpose, I would say from a very, as long as I can remember, as like an adult, I should say, not like when I was 6, I was thinking about purpose, but as like a high school senior and on, I was just like, what am I doing? Like, and how does this matter? And for me, I would say, well, there's a backstory I won't get into right now, but what I'm obsessed with at the moment is I feel like I found my passion in data and analytics. And my only 3 months ago, and this was, again, I'd seen you and some other people, and for probably like 6 years, I've been like, I should put out content. And it was really like, I was like, I should put out content. It's like that thought was with me for years and years and years. And what I'm obsessed with right now, because I've only been doing my YouTube channel for 3 months, so I'm like very early in this journey, but it's had remarkable traction. There's already 1,000 subscribers. I feel like it's the most niche painting YouTube channel on the planet, because you're painting focused. I'm like painting automation specific. Like, that's it. If it's related to automation and painting, I'm talking to you. But it's so niche, and there's people that are like, "Ooh, this is interesting." All of that to say, what was it that made me, and I've tried to dissect this, why did all of a sudden I start the YouTube channel, or go back even further when I started my business, or like I took the first step like 399 weeks ago? There was something that was like, I've never done a show before, and now I'm going to do the show. And then you did another one, and then another one, and then another one. And it's like, once the momentum starts, it's not that it's easy, and like you don't have days of resistance trying to tell you that you should do something else and skip this week. But I do think, and maybe you can disagree, the first one, maybe the first 5 or something, is like excruciatingly difficult. It's like that activation energy in a chemistry equation, if you're familiar with that. You have to get over the hump, and then it's like, and then the reaction takes off, and you're coasting for a while.
Yep, absolutely perfect metaphor, because Ask a Painter is a great example of that. I've also heard a great metaphor from stand-up comedians, which is you will likely be a stand-up comic in open mics and clubs and things for somewhere between 3 and 5 years before you find your voice. You will start mimicking everybody else because that's what your reference points are. You will start experimenting with things. You will fail miserably. Some things will hit, and the data will point you in the right way. And Ask a Painter is a perfect example of that, which is it was dedicated to homeowners in its first 20 episodes. I thought this was Ask a Painter so that everybody who wasn't in this trade could ask a professional painter the questions. And initially, the first 20 episodes were commented on and watched by people from my hometown who were not painters. The second painters found it, I didn't have a choice but to pivot. I found my voice. I was forced into finding my voice, that this is a show for painters, not homeowners.
Mm. So, but what do you think that, can you even remember, like, how long were you like, I should do a Facebook Live before you did it? Or are you someone that
Oh,
just has the gift of like, I have an idea, I take action, I don't think about it, and then I analyze later?
yeah. So the one thing, again, we talk about looking into a lot of things. I have this great thing where I almost to a fault just start stuff. And so that was no problem for me. And I knew at that point, Facebook was going well and Instagram was there. And I saw some people get early traction. And I just thought, you know what? There's a lot of grace for early adopters. And it's way better to just start and start finding it out than wait for the perfect time and the perfect, thing. So I was graced with the natural proclivity to just do it. And having a developed skill of being really good off the cuff and having a deep base of knowledge about the industry so that there's really not anything people can ask me that I don't know, that just lent it to, yeah, just fire up and go live. You'll be fine. Just do it.
Love that. Do you have, because I feel like that's the same, you probably are, that idea of like taking action, doing the first thing, is probably conversations that you have with people that have met you, that I'm sure obviously a lot of people have businesses, but how many people have you talked to that are thinking of starting a painting business, and you're like, just go to here, click on this website, register your business, get a bank account. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
No, I literally, we just did Tanner Mullen's liftoff, which is, I think it's the largest virtual event in the painting industry. He had me be the anchor speaker, and literally my closing slide was, if you want to win in 2024, just execute. Just do it right now. Just right now, start. Do it. Just stand up and go do it. And it's literally all the people that I know and look up to in this industry just did stuff knowing that it's going to fail a lot and you're going to have to find your voice after a while, but they're way ahead because of that, that scientific process of, coming up with a theory, finding variables to test, testing it, getting the data, and cycling that over again, the faster you go through that cycle, the better you're going to be off in the end. Instead of waiting for, well, I'm going to wait till I have the perfect business model and the market is right. And it's never perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. I was listening to a podcast. There was a professor who gave his photography students a task for the semester. And he gave half of the group the task of, I need you to submit 100 photos. Okay. And then your grade is going to be based on how good they are. And then the other half of the students, he said, your assignment for this semester is to submit one photo. Submit the perfect photo. Okay. And so, and then they looked at all the photos, and the vast majority of the best photos, do you think it came from the people who did one or the people who did 100?
Probably 100, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The ones who were trying to make it perfect spent all this time, hemming and hawing over these little details, versus the people that did 100. They probably made 70 terrible photos, right?
Yeah, or more. They had
Yeah,
99 bad
or
ones.
more, but they practiced and they reiterated and they said, here's my photo. What do you think? And they're like, well, this is terrible, but that one part's good, right? So then the next photo, they incorporate the good part and switch everything else, right? And by the time they submitted their 100th photo, those were the best ones.
Yeah, and I would say I've heard
that.
the debate of quantity versus quality. You guys have heard that discussion before?
Yeah.
Quantity leads to quality. It's not an either or. It's the repetitions that get you better. And so, yeah, I love that story, and I think that's it's exactly the same thing of like, people look at Nick Slavik at $3.99 and are like, oh man, I could never do that. It's like, he's been doing this for 400 weeks and speaking and, and it's the repetition, I'm sure not to say that you were trash on episode 1, but I'm sure
You should go back and watch. It's it wasn't the highly polished product that people know it as now. So
yeah, that's awesome. What else? Okay, so I have some other questions. If Nathan, if you don't, I'm curious. One of the things that this goes back to kind of just like jumping in and starting the episode that I watched. I think I've seen your live show twice, and the one that I thought was really just a great mindset to teach people is around that perfection thing, but with job costing. I think you said it's one of your most popular topics. And there's so many people that I feel like drag their feet and they're like, but I don't know if the percentage, like they're just getting caught up on all these details. Like, did I get every receipt, or what if I'm not positive if the time tracking's right, or whatever, or it's like, I'm not sure if I'm doing the production rate estimating correctly. So is that it's like, literally just start, just freaking open up the sheet, take your last job, put the numbers in, and see what comes out. And now you have data and you can start working. But how many times do people just get tripped up on like, I don't know what to do? And it's like, I feel like laughing because like with kids, the beauty of kids, my 4 or 6 year old, they're like, Dad, I'm stuck. And they still don't quite get sarcasm, which is unfortunate because I'm very sarcastic with them, which probably confuses their developmental brains. But they're like, I'm stuck. And I'm like, I guess we're never going to be able to draw ever again.
Yep.
You didn't get, like, what are we going to do? And they're just like, what?
I love that.
Like, well, would we try again? It's like, oh, you think we could try? Oh, that's a good idea. Let's try. Let's do another version of the drawing, And it's like, so the kids know it, they get it. But for some reason, as adults, we're just like, if I don't understand it or I don't have a solution out of the gate, then like, I feel like that's another thing that's holding people back. But where did that piece come from of just like, because I think a lot of people are looking for software and they think that the reason that their painting business is struggling is because they don't have the right software. And there's people that come to us all the time and they're like, what software should I use? And it's like, well, depends how big you are. Because if today's day one, I would say maybe just use a piece of paper and see if you can close a job. Because paying a couple $100 for software is not your problem right now. It's like all the other psychological head trash that's preventing you from talking to people or whatever, And then as you grow, the tools change. and there's different tools that are going to serve a large company better than a small company or whatever. But anyways, I feel like it comes back to this idea of like taking action in imperfection. And I'm curious, was there a moment in your life where you realized that? Or was it just kind of like that's just how you've always been?
No, I've realized that again, there are some things where you can be like, well, listen, here's something that I had to work really hard on, and I did research. There's some things that I'm just biologically programmed to do. Fast start is one of them. For all of its pros and cons, I am a fast starter. Like if there's an idea, I'm a visionary by heart. If there's an idea, I just start. I did not understand that that was a good strategy for certain things, but I did early on when I had a lot of questions about coding science. And when my dad started me at a very young age, we didn't try anything. There wasn't any scientific process, there wasn't any constant improvement. So when I left my family business and started my own, I went as hard as any single human slash painter has ever gone with trying everything, every way, every how, under every condition, and constantly getting data feedback and refining my processes. And my coding systems and standard operating procedures, I would argue, are some of the most simple, beautiful, airtight, replicable systems ever. And after I saw what a weapon those were and what a comfort those were to all my apprentices and people, I thought, well, this is the pattern. Like you need to just go hard and you need to try everything. So job costing is a perfect example, which is business owners love to sit in front of their computers and massage that spreadsheet within an inch of its life until it's perfect. And it's never perfect. And they never bring it out into the real world and execute it and deliver it. And I did the same thing with job costing, which is like, hey, find the first template online, start using it, you'll find the problems in it. And I did. And it was a 2 year process for me to refine my template, just like my painting SOPs. And I would argue you're never going to find a simpler, more beautiful thing to give you the information you need, at least for my personality.
What size business is Nick Slavik Restoration?
Yeah, so we're about 3.3 million. We do res repaint, and depending on the time of the year, we have between 25 and 40 people, two project managers, two estimators, and an office coordinator.
And then the reason I asked that is because I'm curious because I know that you are very, what's the word? Like you have your systems and stuff dialed, like even the job costing thing and the apps. I can't remember the apps that you said you use, but what I've started doing as far as the YouTube channel goes is my philosophy is like my goal. And this is, I going back to Gary Vaynerchuk, I'm completely on board with like, I don't really love his delivery, but I think he's got a lot of truth in what he's saying. And so one of the things that I've always resonated with is he said the ideas are, well, we'll censor it. Ideas are poop, execution is the game. So it's like I can literally tell you every single thing that I know. I can transplant my brain and every thought that I have to you, but you're never like 90% of people can't execute the way that I can. And that's why I am who I am. And same thing for you. Like you could tell 100 painters, look, this is how I run my show. This is how I do everything. This is how I run my business. This is how like ideas, value, spreadsheets, templates, everything. But for some reason, 90% of people can't execute. The other piece is this idea of like the secret sauce. Like every business is afraid, like, oh, if they find out how we do this, like this is the thing that's like been getting us to win the job over our competition. And Gary Vaynerchuk has said the internet has eliminated the secret sauce because you have someone like Nick Slavik, who's been doing this for 400 weeks, who's telling any business that wants to be a professional painting company how to be a professional painting company. So there's nothing that somebody's doing in their painting business that Nick hasn't already told the world, or someone else is going to tell the world in very short time. And so the idea is like, why not just share with the world what you're learning as you're learning it and just post it for everybody to see? So that's my perspective is like, yes, we're going to get clients that listen to this episode and other content. And they're like, hey, they've watched the tutorials and they're like, this is really cool. Chris knows what he's talking about. We're just going to hire Chris and the team to make this. But at the same time, I also am like motivated by the idea is that on YouTube, I can help thousands of people without my personal time. and then 2 of them are going to ask to work with me directly. So like that, and it's such a freeing like way to operate, to just be like, oh yeah, you here, check this out. And then if someone else has a question, it's like, hey, go check out that video. I already solved that. Like there's an hour-long tutorial on how to do that exact thing. And then if they still want more, then we can talk about, a discovery call to work with us or whatever. All that being said, my question to you, running a $3.5 million painting company, is if you were to make a request on like, is it possible to automate XYZ for a $3 million painting company, that I would then go make a tutorial for the world to see for free. So if anyone wants it on YouTube, is there any piece of your business that you're like, I've always wondered about this? And I'm not saying that this is even for you to use. I'm just saying, what are the pieces in your business that are like, I could see some massive time savings in this area if this was even possible?
Okay, so stream of consciousness. For me personally, because I do all the marketing for the business. Marketing would be a great thing. I but the problem is I don't spend a lot of time on it. There are companies that offer automation, but okay, so the way I think about automation is I use some in some very specific ways, and I specifically go around automation because there's a list of pros and cons that come with each one of those. And I don't know if it's universal for every painting business, but in my business, there's some things that we hold very valuable that automation would actually hurt. There's some things, some very basic things that automation helps a lot. So, like one of the biggest things that I don't do that a lot of other painting companies I know do that I respect is like letting clients schedule their own estimates. For me, it makes perfect sense on paper. It's like, yeah, let them sign up for their own estimate. The problem is if you let that happen, we do 36 to 40 estimates a week between 2 estimators. And geographically, they will place themselves in a way that causes a lot of problems. And we actually can't get to 30% or have to reschedule 30% of our estimates. So for me, it's like on paper, I love that. I think that's great. The problem is we want to make the biggest connection we can with these people, and rescheduling is typically a huge pain point. So that's just one example of something like that. Now, if I've tried automation with marketing, and the typical pro is that it saves me time, right? And it can go over multiple platforms and everywhere. The con is people lose my very specific voice of my company if I'm not constantly managing that system. So if I had to have something automated, it would probably be the collection and analysis of marketing data, because it's we have a very simple way of collecting marketing data. Our website has a drop-down list, and in order to schedule an estimate with us, you have to tell us where you heard about us from. It would be great to have a automated system to analyze that stuff daily to see what comes in, and like a live stream, almost a dashboard of that sort of thing. I do this very manually now. It takes a lot of time. Personally, that would be the most helpful for me because I'm the only human with a job description that contains marketing in my business.
Interesting. I was going to say, I'll send you, once it's posted, I'm going to send you this conversation that Nathan and I just had about, I'm going to ask you before I say this, what do you have, or how many marketing sources do you have on your list? Maybe I can even
There's
go look.
there's about oh yeah, there's probably less than 10. There might be between 8 and 12 listed there.
That's great news. And Nathan, you can tell him why. This is good. I love when I take, like, I have opinions and then I find out that the leading guy in the paint world just agreed with my opinion that I have developed over the years.
Yeah.
What did I do good?
So what we were talking about is like you only have 8 to 12, and some people might say, well, what do you mean? There's 30 different ways somebody could hear about me, right?
Yeah.
It could be a past customer, could be word of mouth, could be that billboard, could be that specific ad, could be that specific Facebook campaign, or whatever, right? But what we were talking about is the value of creating buckets for things to fall in, so that when you do analyze the data, it's actionable, right? You can
Yes.
see, this text campaign worked. I want to do that again, right? Or this, direct mailers in general over the last year has not worked, right? I maybe got a few leads in July, but but it hasn't worked, right? So I'm not going to do that anymore, right? So just
So,
having the buckets that you can put it in.
yeah, I said I think you should have 10 or less, because logistically, when you're dealing with people, what I was going to say is that a receptionist and a client, we're only going to like mentally be able to skim or scroll through so many options. And I think it's somewhere in the 7 to 10 area, where it's just like, if you see a list with 12, 14, 14, 15 options, you just are like, I don't know, whatever, that looks good. And you go to the next one. So your quality decreases quickly when you have so many. And then the same thing for your receptionist. If you have too many options when they're talking to someone on the phone, they're not gonna, it's more likely that someone would say something, and one time they pick one source, and the next time someone says that, they pick the other source, because it's just like, it's too much granularity. So anyways, the one I want to challenge though, and I'll just link for everyone else listening that wants to go deep into this topic, you have past customer as a source. And I would say, I don't think that that's a lead source. I think it's important, but I don't think it's a lead source. What would you say to that?
I would say then, my friend, if you're going to challenge me, what would you categorize a past client that calls us and asks for another estimate? Huh?
Yes, we're getting somewhere. Because I would, or I guess, so, well, I have two things. First would be, if I told you that you got 20 past customers last month that called you, and you're like, sweet, so this month, what are you going to do to get me more past customers?
Okay, so yes, this is a thing that I dive deep into. I have a marketing master's class, like a nuts and bolts from a paint business owner thing that I travel around and do. And I say that same thing. I put my marketing into two categories: things that are free or great that are not scalable, and things that cost a hell of a lot of money and are absolutely scalable. So think Google or Everydoor direct mail, right? And so for me, over the years, as I've gotten more sophisticated, I agree with the same thing, which is I said the same thing you just said to me to some paint business owners, single owner operators that brag about, listen, I've been a painter for 10 years. I've never once spent a nickel on advertising. And someday I want to get off the brush and the ladder, but I take that as a point of pride. Everybody's a repeat client. And I say the same thing, which is great. This year, if you want to double your business, how do you double that? How do you double that right there? Because you can't. That's not up to you. So that's why, as I've gotten more sophisticated, I've made my two buckets of things that can cost a lot of money that are scalable, and we try to be reasonable with that. And then there's things that we know we can work on, but we can't control, that give us relatively low price leads. We have about 13 different things that I touch a week in order to make sure the mix and the soup and the maelstrom of that gets the leads we need.
Nice. Okay. Because I would say, yeah, very similar belief, but I would say, I think that the past customer you shouldn't even allow the customer to pick that as an option, because I want to know why, even if they were a past customer,
Yeah,
what marketing or activity did we do that made you reach out, as opposed to it's
you're
almost
right.
like giving them the out to say, oh, I'm a past
Yeah,
customer,
yep,
instead of like, oh, I'm on your newsletter and I get your newsletter every month for the last 3 years, and I love what you guys do. It's like, oh, we should probably keep
yep.
doing that newsletter. But yeah, I
Yeah,
love
I
that.
think, and if we really wanted to get, granularity is the killer of this, just like you guys said. If I go on a website and there's 31 options for how we get there, I'm like, ugh, whatever, just click the 19th one, whatever. They don't care anyway, right? It's one of those things. So
Yeah.
the next best granularity would be previous customer subset mailer, subset web. That would be great too, but now they're not going to respond to that. They're not going to collect,
Yeah. Yeah.
they're not going to click the second order of that.
They
So
don't care as much as you. Yeah, exactly.
no, and
Um,
again, I will say in the end that for me, I know that there is not going to be an exactness in the way that people report this anyway. Like we got our first, I added my 11th thing I think you guys are on my website. I added my 11th category, door hanger, because we started door hangers this last year, and we were so excited as a company. A lead came in through the website and it listed door hanger. The problem was it was in an area where we did not put door hangers. So again, it's like I know that yes, we want exact stuff, but we know that with the irrationality of humans and a drop-down menu, it's going to be at best as I can discern 90% accurate. And so for me, it's more of like, listen, what are we really dealing with here? It's more of like 90% of this is accurate. There's enough actionable items here where I don't need to go the next deeper. I think I'm saying what you guys are saying too, but I'm just a
Yeah.
realist
Love
about
that. I love that. Two quick questions. You guys are doing everything. What CRM or mailing tool are you guys using in your business?
it. Okay. We don't have one, right? I'm going to start with that. The second thing is it has been very intentional for me that we base this entire business in Google because I love to constantly manipulate and change the stuff. And we haven't signed on to like a enterprise software or something like that. Not because I don't like them. I think all of them are great. The problem is I want to be in complete control, and my personality dictates that I do not mind manipulating my own spreadsheets and my systems and processes. I actually get energy from it. And it's been a very positive thing because us using a series of G Sheets and Google workplace documents under my supervision has been great for us because we can literally change 3 times a day. We don't have to learn a process. We don't have to comply with a software that we didn't create. So what we do is 80% of what we own in this company, probably 90%, is literally a G Sheet that we use to some device.
And so you're like basically your CRM is like spreadsheet of all contacts, name, email, phone, address, whatever, and then you have another
Mhm.
spreadsheet of your jobs and leads and stuff like that.
Yeah, and we
That's
we
so cool.
with the goal, we know that there's pros and cons of all this stuff, right? It takes a lot of manualness. One human with a couple bad keystrokes could cause a lot of damage. The problem is we try to make them as simple and as beautiful, and we manipulate them so much that we can tell when something's off. Also, my system only works if it's constantly monitored and you force it into a single source of truth. That is the most important part, which is this system goes completely sideways when every day you create another sheet and you have sheets scattered all over the place. Every time we do something, we always try to mush it into one single source of truth so we know that the information is here. We just have to be sophisticated enough to find it in there.
Oh my gosh, I'm excited for more relationships with Nick Slavik. You're
Dude, we
saying
could
so many things
listen.
that are they're saying so many things that are the principles. I'm like 1,000%, and then there are some other things where I'm like, I
I
think
know.
that
And listen,
you're this close to Airtable, and it's your new Google Sheet, and then you're off and
dude,
running, and you love it. That's what's about to happen.
my system that I created, I am literally Icarus flying close to the sun. If you put another manager in charge of this, it might completely go sideways and you could delete my business with 2 mouse strokes, right? The problem is it fits my personality well. And I'm very upfront and honest when I share all my templates, which is you're going to be unsatisfied. My standard operating procedure that I laminate and give to my painters is a spreadsheet. It's literally a G sheet. So if you think that I have some magic things that's going to tell you what to charge or do something for you, it is not. In fact, you're going to have to learn Excel or G sheets in order to do this. And so I just want you guys to know, and I think you guys know this, but it's very important for everybody watching, listening to know too, that I am fully aware of the pros and cons, and
Mm.
we work to limit the variables that are the cons of this. But right now, we have such simple ways of doing this, and we force it into a single source of truth. It is a beautiful functioning system that does have faults. I do not want to tell people that this is perfect.
Yeah. So I'm going to highlight to wrap this up. Source of truth, could not agree more. That's like one of the biggest issues that I see for any business is that they're like at the end of the month, they got to run a report and they're like going and exporting CSVs from 4 different softwares and trying to merge it and it's not lining up. So that's number one. Second thing is I love that you brought up the pros and cons because I preach on this every day. It's like if you're coming to us or you're looking on the internet for the silver bullet software that does everything and your dishes and makes your bed, it doesn't exist. It's stop looking for it. There's no perfect system out there. It's all trade-offs, just like life. It's like everything's a trade-off. It's not a right or wrong decision to have a show and not be with my family, but it's like I'm going to choose to do this instead of going and doing this other thing, like saying yes to something is no to something else. And I think that that's another fantastic point to end on. So to be mindful of time, I do want to shift to the wrap up questions. What are your 3 book recommendations?
Yep, and to properly frame this, I am famous for not reading a lot of books, but the books I do, you'll see the theme here. The books I do read, I freaking execute. I just do. I implement every page, every line, everything, and sometimes it takes me years. Traction. Traction is number one. There's lots of in thinking about the books that I recommend, I usually like a good mix of books. Traction, it's a nuts and bolts, no nonsense, straightforward, simple, single source of truth on how to grow your business and how to structure your business. It's not a proprietary system. It's not novel. It is a simplified accumulation of everything in business that really works in a very easy to read thing and just execute. And when I was turned on to this book, I literally within like 6 weeks did almost all the book in my business. It just hit me at the perfect time. So traction is like literally just executable data, executable information. And you asked for 3 books, was it?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. So there is and these are meaningful to me in my professional life, right? So there is a Minnesota author named Sigurd Olson, and he is a naturalist. He's the one who 100 years ago instituted a lot of the wilderness in America, and his way. I'm from Minnesota, so obviously I'm biased. I love this, but he's a naturalist. He writes of real non-poetic beauty in the wilderness. And every time I read one of his books, it always makes me think of how insignificant me and my painting business is. He's talking about the eternity of time and how glaciers scraped over a rock millions of years ago, and that scrape is still there in northern Minnesota, and you can see it. And it really centers me in a very odd way of saying I color houses for a living, and I'm only going to do it for 50 years. And it just really puts you in a time and a place of this is important. It's good to be intentional. It's good to have purpose, but understand how insignificant all this is. So you should just get out there and do stuff and be nice to people, right?
And the book title
the
is?
so he's got about 10 books. I would probably say his first book, Singing Wilderness by Sig Olson, Sigols. I think it's On. But it is,
Yep,
I mean,
it's
it's
Owen.
literally just it just puts you in your place. The third one is From Here to Eternity, and it is a beautiful book about a young man coming of age. It starts off with like Pearl Harbor happening, and then how he navigates that as a young person through personal relationships and other things. And this may be one of the worst book recommendations ever. I don't know that, but for me, my mother sent it to me when in my first year of military service, and time and place, I was overseas. I was stuck in a bunk and I had a lot of time to read. And this book is literally 1,500 pages. It's a massive one. And it hit me right at the perfect time. And again, it recentered all this, which is like, it's not this hero war novel. It's actually kind of weird and sad, but coming of age, figuring out what you're supposed to do in your life, purpose, intentionality, the significance and insignificance of everything. It just hit me at a right time where I only recommend it because I think about it 30 years, 20 years later. Like it just
That's
doesn't
awesome.
leave me.
And favorite movie?
Yeah. So again, there's lots of great movies. I want to offer something unique, which would be Apocalypse Now. It's literally the best
1979
movie
one,
that's
right?
ever been made. Yes, and even the Redux version where they added some extra stuff in. Yes, and it was the most significant thing about that for me is I did not even begin to understand it, and I was in the military when I saw it. I didn't understand a thing about it. I just thought it was visually interesting. Over the next 20 years, I understood subsequently everything in that movie, and that is interesting to me because it's way less about what those things were in the movie, that it really let me know that life experiences and trying stuff out gave you wisdom that you didn't have before, and you may not even realize you're accumulating all this wonderful wisdom. But now when I watch that movie, it completely makes sense to me. I see all the through lines. I understand every bit of it, even the weird esoteric stuff, and it's only because I lived a certain amount of life as a business owner and as a parent, as a father and a husband.
Thank you. Those are awesome. What is your preferred method of contact? People want to get in touch with you.
Love me some email. It's nick@nickslavik.com.
Fantastic. Any closing remarks from either of you?
No,
I would
I
just want
hope
to
this is
say
not the
this
last
is,
time we do this.
yeah, seriously. I feel like we could sit here for 3 hours and get into, like, I want to know all your G sheets. I want to see them all, and I want to know how you use them from the time somebody calls. And if you're not a painter, you'd be like, "Oh my gosh, that sounds like hell!" Like literally.
No, no, no.
Like, but for
My
me,
my
it was so much
yeah.
fun.
No, listen, man. And when you said like my job costing episodes are some of my uh, most watched, that's the weird nerds that are attracted to Ask a Painter. Like we love oil primer more than anything, but we also are intricately interested in G Sheet job costing. So listen, one of the most sort of like interesting things that I like to do is share spreadsheets with other people. So if you guys ever want to do a live screen share, when I try to describe how I do my stuff, dude, nothing would bring me more pleasure.
Let's get
Let's
it on
do
the
it.
calendar.
I was gonna say the thing I'll leave you with, I just have to ask, and you're gonna have to. I have a video coming out in the next week sometime that I'll send to you, but I'm curious, to what extent have you experimented or looked at Airtable, like a scale from 1 to 10? 1 being like you've never even heard of the name and this is the first time you're hearing it, and 10 is like you're as good at Airtable as you are at Google Sheets.
1.7.
Okay. Because I believe, and Nathan and I met at a conference and we were both sitting next to each other talking about our Google Sheets. We were like, "Hey, check this out."
Nerds.
We were like,
Oh,
"Look at this." Yeah, like we were seriously like, everyone else is like going off to lunch and we were like, "Oh,
yep.
let me see that formula. How'd you, oh, that's a great idea." And like, that's how our relationship, our bromance got started. Many years later, here we are. But I resisted, and I had looked at Airtable years ago and I was like, "Oh, it's just like Google Sheets. It just costs money. That's stupid." And I got rid of it. And then in the last 6 months, because of another guy I interviewed, Gareth Pronovost, who's like the leading Airtable expert on YouTube, I was like, I need to learn this. This is like, there's something here that I'm missing, because it just, he was raving about this. So I guess my offer or proposal to you would be, if you like Google Sheets, I believe that you will like Airtable 10 times more, because you still get all the control.
Oh,
You get it's completely customizable, just like Google Sheets is. But the one key thing, and I'm sorry that we're going past time, I'm sure you've got other things to get to, this will be my wrap up: relational databases. So have you ever heard that term?
oh, yes, I have. Yes, I have.
So Google Sheets cannot do relational databases. It's not possible.
Yep. Yep.
So what you have in a Google Sheet with like your project list and another tab with your customers and whatever, think of those as, each one of those is a database. You've got your records
Yep.
down, and then you've got your data points in each table. You have a database of projects, customers, people, maybe callbacks, I don't know, whatever else you track, time, hours, log, like expenses. You could put all of it in there. In Airtable, exact same concept, except now I can say, I want the project in this sheet to relate to the contact in the contact sheet and relate to the employee in the employee sheet. And it's literally linking to that record, as opposed to like what
Mhm.
you would normally do in Google Sheets is like just have a drop down with your crew leader names, and you have to constantly update the drop downs and stuff. And then you're looking up
Yep.
information with VLOOKUPs in other sheets. It eliminates that entirely, because it's literally relating one database to the next. So in my opinion, this is why I love what you said. There's pros and cons, right? I believe
Yep.
that Airtable is literally all the pros of Google Sheets. It still has cons of like
Yeah.
roughly your spreadsheets and stuff like that. But it's all the pros of like Google Sheets with the added benefit of relational databases, which is not to be undervalued, if that makes sense. And the part that I think is so
Yeah. So,
scalable about it is that it's $20 a month, because people are like, I don't want to spend
oh,
like hundreds of dollars on software per user. And it's like, yeah. So anyway, I could go on, but that's like what on my YouTube channel, I'm like all about trying to scream as loud as I can about how Airtable is something that you should be paying attention to, because it's still, I'm the same way as you. I don't want to be put in a box and be forced to do my jobs and my management the way that your app says I have to. and you get that freedom in Airtable. So anyways.
Dude, I paused.
I know it feels like you're cheating on G Sheets. I've spent so much time intimately with G Sheets that when you bring up another
I know, right?
spreadsheet tool,
You can't
it
imagine
feels
life
icky.
without Google, right? And dude,
Yeah.
you shook relational databases. You shook a core memory from between 18 and 20 years loose for me. I know that word, and while you were describing it, it shook it loose. This is back in college when they taught me Microsoft Access. This was that old school crappy interface, just old school true database. You could, and it's what United Healthcare has with 10 million employees that you can query. Show me all the humans that had this during this time under this condition, and you could. It's like, oh, dude, I haven't thought about that word in 20 years.
You're about to start thinking about it a lot more.
I
But
love that,
anyways,
man. Thank you for that.
yeah, anyways, super fun, Nick. Thank you so much for coming on. We'll definitely be chatting about Google Sheets and spreadsheets and data and all that stuff. Keep doing what you're doing in the world. It's infectious and exciting. And like I said, it was a big motivator in me being like, I need to freaking start putting information in the world like Nick is. So, for anyone listening, you can check out our YouTube channel, obviously, and then maybe join Nick Slavik's next Ask a Painter Live.
Yeah, love it, man. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you so much for listening. My name is Chris Kiefer, and my mission is to champion the relentless pursuit of purpose. And what that means to me is to be an example, a champion, someone that is in the trenches, working and showing and winning and trying and failing in how to pursue a deeper and more meaningful life with the people that I love, with my kids, with my friends, with our family, and also just be a champion and example of entrepreneurship and following my passion and doing what I believe I'm called to on this earth. And so if that inspires you in some way, please share this episode. If you want, like, subscribe, share, whatever, do all the stuff. It means the world to me to get this message and get these guests that I have out there. And if you're interested in any of the book recommendations or looking up other episodes of the movie list, you can visit my website, chriskiefer.com, for all the details on the show, and also check out the Boolean review software, as well as the Boolean automation consulting company that I own for home service businesses. So thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next episode.